All right. Well, we are on a roll lately. I'm talking now with Spencer Kramber, who's an alum of the theater department who comes back occasionally to do some workshops and such. And we happen to have caught him on the day after you've done some at Minnesota State Mankato. So where are you from? Are you back home now?
So I'm back in Los Angeles. Yeah, flew in
Okay.
last night and am back. And then I'm flying back to Minnesota this weekend for Thanksgiving. And then I'm flying back the week after that because my 100-year-old grandmother, God bless her soul, has been reunited with my grandfather up in heaven.
Oh,
And we're going to come back and have a beautiful celebration for her. And enjoy the blessings that has been my family. I grew up in Glenwood, Minnesota, small town, 13 miles south of Alexandria. When I was 2 years old, my parents managed the fishing resorts,
hmm.
which I think added to my career as being an actor because you had guests coming every weekend that you had to kind of entertain. So that's where performance began. Then we moved into Glenwood, grew up there, graduated from Minnewaska Area High School in 19. I'm at that age where I'm doing that now. That
Yeah.
used to be the thing that corny people did when they got older, and now I'm
Yeah.
doing that. So that's I'm having a moment, Mike. Uh,
Well, I will tell you while you're clearing your throat that I've got a cousin in Starbuck, and I've
okay.
been I've been to Glenwood a couple of times for their kids' weddings.
Oh, great. Yeah, yeah. Probably down to the Lakeside Ballroom, I imagine.
That's it exactly. Yep.
It isn't Glenwood beautiful.
Yes, it is.
That drive down, it's people don't know about it, but it's in this like crater from a glacier, and it is a beautiful place. And growing up there, I got involved in high school theater, as many of the majors did that I went to school with. Started off in high school theater, did speech, did choir. I was also an athlete, did football, basketball, tennis. And then I made the choice that I wanted to be a theater major during my senior year, and I went to the high school workshops that Mankato did
Oh,
it must
wow.
have been 93. They were doing Midsummer Night's Dream.
Okay.
And I remember seeing the Andreas for the first time we had a brand new high school. So we had a nice auditorium, but I mean, it wasn't like the Andreas. And it was right in, the set was, I think it was the week before opening. So the set was just looking like it was coming together. My buddy, Nathan Broughton, and we ran up to the top of we snuck into the backstage. We took the spiral staircase all the way up to the rafters. And we explored the guts of the theater.
Hmm.
And that's when I was like, I need to come here. And that's when
Well,
I chose Mankato.
I'm kind of puzzled a bit though because the Andreas did not open until 2000.
My bad, Ted Paul.
Okay.
Ted Paul. I completely got the names messed around since I saw the playing the Andreas this weekend. So
Yeah.
correction, rewind, re-record.
Okay.
Yeah. At the Ted Paul, they were doing because at that time you were correct. There were the Phoenix Theater in
Right.
I think it was the Bel Air Mall.
Belmar, you're close.
Belmar. There we go. Bel Air would have been very different.
Yep, I think it was Bella Avenue and Marabou or something. So it was Belmar.
Yeah. And then so I ended up choosing, and I went to Mankato State. I had to pull this out for you. You can see this.
Oh, very nice.
I went to Mankato State. I got this my freshman year in '94. I still have it, and I'm waiting for it to break any day. And went there from '94 to '98.
All right. All right. So tell us a little bit about you say you clinched it when you went to the high school workshop, uh, probably going to Mankato. What were your expectations? What was your hope when you came to Mankato?
Based upon that trip, I made the determination that it was the best theater department in the state. Not that I did extensive research, but I was also looking at like St. John's, the U of M,
Hmm.
and I knew I didn't want to go to St. Cloud State or Fargo because that's where all my friends were going. But I was like, this is the best theater department I could possibly find, and it's the next level size town up that I want to go to because I felt kind of intimidated by the cities, being a boy from a one stoplight county. So I
Yeah.
was like, I can do this. It's enough away from everybody where I can feel like I'm independent. And honestly, it's affordable versus a private college. And if you are going here, I'm going to talk to the audience now. If you are going into the arts, young high schoolers, you got to start thinking about debt because it is really hard to be an artist when you are carrying the burden of financial debts.
Yeah.
It just doesn't go well because it's not a lucrative industry. So I will say, if you're going to look into going into education and the cost of it, find one that's affordable, because it would be very tough after otherwise. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Mankato being affordable to me was really important too. I went by this cost, departments, and then atmosphere. And I really liked the atmosphere at St. John's, but the Mankato State got the other two. So
Okay. Now, I've heard from a lot of people that they have that first meeting with Dr. Hustles, and he can kind of try to intimidate you to not pursue theater, only because the same reasons that you just gave, that it's got to be something you're very serious about. It's not going to be something necessarily you'll come out with a huge Hollywood career. Those are few and far between. Did you have that talk? Do you remember that one?
Vaguely, I vaguely remember that, and I mirror it too with Dr. Lawson in Fundamentals of Acting. See if I can find this here. I have something to share as I bring this up for your people who are watching. If you this was the book that we got first acting class, Fundamentals of Acting, and Lawson sitting around, and I'm sure Hustles did kind of the same thing. Where he was like, but Lawson said, out of all 14 of you in here, however many of us are, one of you will be doing this 10 years from now. And with my competitiveness, my, I suppose, sports background, and just being a competitor and everything, I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
I just went, that'll be me. And there was really no doubt. And it's maybe I should have had more doubt. Because just because it is such a hard industry. It's not, that wasn't the challenge. The challenge is once you get out to Los Angeles and you start, or whatever city you're in, New York, Chicago, Minneapolis, and you do start auditioning, you do start working, and it's not about how badly you want it anymore. It's not about how good you are anymore. It's about so many other variables that it is just, it's very tough. And I'm grateful for Hustles and Whitlock and a Lawson for challenging us like that, because it sets you up for what you're going to encounter if you want a career in anything really, but especially in acting, in theater, in entertainment, and in the arts.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk about that, maybe that first audition that you went to at MSU, or your first day of classes, or are there some stories that you remember fondly or not so fondly?
I remember going into audition for Lewis Whitlock for Pippin. I was going to sing Old Man River, which is funny, but and I walked in, and Lewis was so intimidating, and I never saw him smile before.
Oh, yeah.
And he looked up and he saw me, and he flashed the biggest smile. It might have been stepping out, now that I think about it. But anyway, he flashed the biggest smile, and I saw these beautiful white teeth, and it scared me. I was like, oh my God, who is this person? What have you done with Lewis Whitlock? And then, but he made me, so I actually had the reverse effect. I came in really nervous, and then he immediately made me feel comfortable. And I was just like, okay, great. And we always had good experiences like that, I would say. The classes would be tougher than the show auditions. Lawson had a great thing about the auditions, though. He would always get very frustrated when, this is such a good lesson for artists and actors. He'd get very frustrated when students would come to him and say, like, I want to play Richard III. I want to play this role. I want to be Sherlock. And then they would get the role, and then they would stop doing the work. Oh. They thought because they had it that the job was kind of done. And he kept on saying, no, that's the beginning of the job. And that was one of those, just, you pick up all these pearls of wisdom, all these little nuggets. And obviously that's something from 25 years ago, I still remember. And so when I book a role, I don't think like, okay, I got it, I'm going to go celebrate now. I think, where's my script? I have to continue my work. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's very good advice. And we'll be talking a little bit about what it is that you do now. And maybe you want to talk about that, because it is coming off of a weekend when you were just in Mankato doing what you do. Well, you're a huge part of this, Mike, because you're the one so when did you start in Mankato? I started at Mankato State Theater Department. Yeah, I was fall of '99. Okay, so right after I left. So you were part of the people who brought in the Andreas, and then you guys started this initiative where, and I don't know when this was, where you started bringing back alumni like me who were still in the industry, and I was coming in with a casting perspective because I had managed a casting facility and started bringing us back. I suppose as we lead into that, I'll start off with saying, when I graduated Mankato in '98, I toured around for a couple of years, ended up going to grad school at UCLA for acting from 2003. '03, when I graduated, I became an assistant manager at a casting facility, a commercial casting facility in West LA. And I managed that, which was an amazing experience from '03 to '06 under my dear friend who passed away this past spring, Tim Reel. He was the one who got me into this industry out of grad school, and I'm always indebted to him. If we're gonna have a Barbara Walters moment, probably making me talk about Tim will get me to cry. We just had a beautiful memorial for him this past weekend. So, and then in '06, when our studio closed, I became a freelance session director, and that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years, in addition to acting and teaching. And I think after a couple of years of doing that, we got connected somehow.
Yeah.
And you brought me and you facilitated this, the beginning of this, where I got to come back and do these workshops where I come back. I would call it a simulator, because I realized that a lot of students weren't getting repetitions enough in auditioning for camera to make an impact in the industry once they graduate. So I created this format. You facilitated me coming back. And we started doing these workshops, which I base off of Jane Brody's. I don't know if you ever knew that.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that, no.
So when I was maybe a freshman or a sophomore, the casting director, I think she was out of Chicago, and she worked on the film Fargo, Jane Brody.
That's right.
Came back through Hustles or Lawson, and she would be our careers in theater guest, industry guest. And then the next day she did a pay workshop. And there was about 16 of us who paid whatever the amount was. And we just got to have her for about 3 hours. And then we went out for a lunch with her at the old Maggie's. Remember Maggie's? Yeah, Maggie's. So we all went to Maggie's, and then got to stay in touch. And that was really cool. I remember thinking, like, this is the industry, like, coming to us. So I reached out to you and said, I would like to do this. Do you remember what happened from there?
I really don't, because you have mentioned now a couple of times that I did such great facilitation, and I don't remember that I had that large role, except that we had talked about it, and I thought that you were doing things through Hustles or the department other than me. I'm just kind of that behind the scenes cog.
I think it was a three-pronged approach between you and me, because I brought in like whatever I did, and then Hustles brought in the fear. Like, take this class, do this, and then I think you just facilitated everything else. That's the way it kind of worked in my mind.
Okay, well,
he's the megaphone, and you're the one that makes everything happen.
I will take that. I was pretty much the guy who was always whispering in Paul's ear anyway. He would deny that, but I would say, man, that person in the corner, that's so and so. We should probably talk to them.
You were the guy in Veep who's always whispering to Julia Louis-Dreyfus's ear.
Yep.
That's a great character. Yeah. So I started coming back then with the help of you and Hustles every other year for the careers in acting. And I kid you not, it's probably been 12 years. So I've probably done it 6 times.
Yeah.
Where I fly in, I do the careers guest lecture, industry guest lecture on Friday. And then on Saturday, I do 2 on-camera masterclass workshops, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, with about 12 to 16 students, and they each pay a minimal fee. And I would say it's been a banger of success for many years. I also created relationships, so that way, if any of the students, and many of them have, Clayton Rutshaw, Calandra is out here. Right now we have an alumni named Patrick Fossen. And even ones who just don't move out here but come out for a visit, they have me as a contact, and I can introduce them to other alum that are out here, such as Todd Carner. When I came out here in 2000, it was Kamala Kramer, who's a former Ted Paul scholar. Sure. She was out here, and I remember her taking me out for music and a party, and so we need to support each other in this industry in that way. So going back and doing these workshops and these seminars is really a good way to keep extending that. I love doing it.
Kamala is back in Wisconsin now.
Yeah, so, doing music, and has her daughter all grown up, and as many of us do.
It's amazing how that happens.
So thank you to you always, Mike, for being a huge part of everything that you do.
Oh, well, thank God.
for Mankato.
Somewhere on one of these computers, I have some video from that because I can remember that first time I sat there and recorded much of it and then never did anything with it, but I still have those files
Oh my
on
goodness.
the computer somewhere. So I come across them every once in a while, unless I deleted them last time. But talk a little bit about what you go, because it was a full day worth of work that you put in with those students. What is the process that you go through, and how is it that you learned what you then pass on?
Well, through my casting experience, so going back to that, being a session director. So a lot of people think that casting directors are the ones that are in the room running the audition, working with the actors. And that's true for about the first maybe couple, at least commercially, especially. But then after that, they have to go back to their office. They're setting up the schedule for the next day. They're booking people from the prior job. They're looking at treatments for another job coming in. So they hand it over to me and other people such as me who run the auditions. So if you're an actor and you're coming in for an audition, I'm the one who greets you, signs you in. If I don't have an assistant, I get you in the room, give you the direction, do a take, do an adjustment, do another take, and then I send you on your way. And I've done this for 15 years. I would say, with my very rough estimates, I've done my 10,000 hours.
Wow.
I've worked on over 1,000 different jobs, commercials, TV, film, voiceover, industrial, hosting. And then I've seen over 100,000 different auditions. So I've seen what works. And the main thing is repetition. My big mantra is the person who's had 100 auditions is in a better place than the person who's going in for their first 10, from the perspective of being able to bring something to the audition because they're more comfortable. They're not as distracted with the whole experience. So I try to bring that to the students. I say, look, let's get these first couple auditions out of the way. Let's have you fail here. So that way, when you do move to Minneapolis and you do get an audition for a commercial or a small little co-star on a film that might be shooting there, or a feature in a film, that you have some experience. It's not your first time doing it.
Yeah.
If I had my choice, if I worked with one person for a day, we would just do 10 different auditions. And that would be like, okay, throw anything at me. I'm ready to knock it out of the park. Because when you audition, that's the beginning of your job on the character. A lot of people think I audition, I get the job, and now I start to create the character. No, you creating the character that you brought in the audition is what booked you the job. That is what they want, not what you're going to create from there. That can happen, but for the most part, they're like, we loved what you did at the audition. Don't try to do anything else. So I love bringing that to the students.
Do you remember some really educational kind of aha moments that have come through your Mankato visits? Probably not, because there's been thousands and thousands of them, but
yeah, there's been so many. The biggest thing is how much the students are craving it. The students crave what myself and Jane Brody brought. I hear often, I love what I got there. I wish I would have got more of this.
Okay.
And it's hard. There's no fault of the faculty on that. If I just quit session directing and became a teacher teaching this, all of a sudden my information starts to become very antiquated. And because the industry is changing that quick. But we are very different now than we were before COVID. Everyone, we're doing more self-tapes, we're doing more Zoom auditions, studios have closed. And so I'm able to share that with the students now, versus if I would have become a teacher 3 years ago, I'd be like, it's how it was 3 years ago, and it's not. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is the students are really craving what's going to be next, and how they can translate their theater performance into this frame, into this box, because that's what we grow up idolizing. Every actor wants to be on TV, film, and Broadway. It really comes down to those three things, and we want to have these great moments and everything else. Acting is not the hard thing, Mike. Getting the opportunity to do it for wages is hard. I mean, let's just be honest. It's about money. I mean, we have to pay rent. You have to put food on the table. You have to pay your student loans. You have to pay your car payment. So back to what you were saying, a big part of the lecture is you may not be an actor when you're done, but you can still use what you learned to have an incredibly successful career with whatever you do. I
Right.
always say maybe you end up being a corporate head at Target, but because of your theater background, you're the one who's putting on the shows. You're the one who's giving the presentations. You're the one who's out there being in front of people when nobody else wants to be. So there are so many different ways to parlay what you learn as a theater major into success.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about the different venues for that. I just interviewed Steve Corona, who has found himself in a lot of the Netflix films because he moved to New Mexico, and now Netflix took over the studio that was in Albuquerque, I believe, and he finds himself on the doorstep of all of these great films. And he said his first auditions that he went to, the casting director was very nice, but she kept saying, okay, and now if you can bring that down a little bit, because he was doing theatrical auditions and they wanted the film auditions. So he learned, doing that as well as doing his dialect work and his voiceover work. You learn something everywhere that can apply to what you do as an actor, I'm sure.
It's funny you bring that up. I have a trick as a session director. What I do when I have an actor who I can tell has a theater background or is just doing a kind of big, and not just theater, but improv, sketch comedy, anything like that. I trick them by saying, hey, that was great. I love that. Because I definitely, the second that you start to that to an actor, insecurities understandably start to come up. So I'm always trying to be encouraging or just very blunt, like, hey, okay, I was wrong about this direction. Let's fix this. But when I see an actor do that, I'm like, that's great. Let's do that again. But this time, keep all of what you're doing, but I'm pushing in for a close-up. I'm going to be on a super tight close-up and think film. And then I keep the same frame. I don't push in for a close-up. I keep it on a wide shot and I get the size that I want. Because if you tell an actor to play it smaller, all of a sudden they start thinking, oh, I did it wrong. But now if you say, I'm doing something different and I need you to change what you're doing, they don't get insecure at all. They just think like, okay, I'm being a good teammate, but I'm still getting the result that I want. It's a little trickery. And then I'll let them know that too. I'm like, hey, come over here. And the other great thing that's fun with auditioning these days for me is it's digital. So if I really need to communicate something to an actor, I'll just call them over and be like, hey, Mike, come over here for a second. Come over here. All right. And see how you blinked right there? And it's a little bit, and right away you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Thank you for showing that to me. And then they go back and they do it. I try to demystify this.
Oh, yeah.
Really, it's an art form. And I think a lot of our youthful exuberance want to mystify this into something like what Doctor Strange does. Like we can have an otherworldly experience. And I think for the audience that can happen, but our job as the performer is to facilitate the story. And one of my favorite quotes is, I came here to watch this character have a mental breakdown, not the actor.
Oh, yeah.
And I think just taking a lot of that mysticism out of it and saying, like, if you can just stand here and have an eye line and let the audience do the work, it engages them more than you trying to shove something down their throats. And that varies with theater, depending upon size, space, content and everything. But I think when you can relieve the actor, one of my favorite quotes from a director was, we had this emotional piece for an AT&T commercial. It's a brother reading another letter from their father between two brothers. And a lot of actors, these older men, more around our age, not kids, they're coming in and they're reading this letter and they're trying to bring out tears. And the director would say to them, relieve yourself of the obligation of trying to convince us that you're feeling something.
Oh.
Relieve yourself of the obligation of trying to convince us that you're feeling something. And it really stuck because that's what I would always try to do. I'm going to convince the audience that I'm feeling something. When the writer has already done so much of the work, and then the director or the editor, that the more I remove myself, the more opportunity I give the audience to play. That's why I like acoustic music. I don't like produced music because I feel like when I listen to acoustic music, it allows me to, my soul, my imagination to fill in the music that's not there, the instruments that aren't there. And I think the same thing can happen for storytelling. You can just take footage of a woman with her head on a table, cut to footage of a judge opening up a verdict letter and cut back to her. But if you give the actress just neutrality and have her head on the table, take out the footage of the judge open up the verdict letter and replace it with a teapot going off, and the woman raises her head. If you have two separate audiences, they don't know the difference. they'll still think that that woman, that character, is having a response to an action.
Okay.
But the actress has been given no information. I'm literally using her as a meat puppet to say, do me a favor, put your head on the table. When I snap my finger, raise your head and look forward. She has been given no other information, but the audience buys the story. And I
Okay.
love that. That was very freeing information to me.
I bet.
Of like, I don't have to, cut my heart open and let it fall onto the table. Sometimes actually doing that is worse.
Yeah.
And I don't think we realize that. And sometimes we need to be told that.
Okay. How much of what you teach have you learned on set? Because you do a lot of commercial work as well as an actor. And how much of that have you seen, other actors who have not had your workshop, who try to do those things that you've been told not to do? It must be, I don't know, frustrating or enlightening at least.
Well, I can tell you this, being on set is a monumental experience. Because you start to see where the money hits the road. All of a sudden you're on set it's just, I've probably been in about 40 commercials, I'm proud to say, many nationals. And I've been on 4 TV shows, Young and the Restless, Criminal Minds, Them on Amazon Prime. And I've done one short film that was award-winning called Pop Music. And I recently, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but I booked and shot a film with J.K. Simmons up in Montana this past fall. Yeah, just about a month ago, called The Woods. It's in post-production right now, and hopefully will be being released here in the winter or the spring. And I got to work with J.K. Simmons. For your viewers who don't know who that is, he's the star of Whiplash. He won the Oscar for J. Jonah Jameson from all the Spider-Man films. And he's also the spokesperson for Farmers Insurance.
Right.
So yeah, and I had a wonderful experience with him. But to answer your question, we think this is all fun and games. But once you start to see, when you get on set and you start going through the process, the producers, the creative team that's there, the gaffers, the lighting, the trailers, it's millions of dollars. And that's when you realize, like, oh, this isn't fun and games anymore. This is just, you show up, you do your job, you don't talk about character, you don't distract the first AD when they're trying to do something, you don't try to help the first AD or anything like that. Like, you get experience. And the important thing is, a lot of talent think that they can just jump into a scenario like that and perform, and it's a really rare situation. There's a reason why you go from co-star to guest star to recurring regular to, because if you try to jump in and you've got an intense scene and you have all these lines right away, it can be intimidating. My role on Criminal Minds, I'm that detective who asks them, the FBI agents, a question in the middle of it, and behind me are 20 extras. And for any reason, I've seen it happen on set where, if for whatever reason they're not feeling the performance by this actor, they'll send them to a trailer and bring up another extra and just upgrade them and say, can you do this line? And they could.
Yeah.
So when that happens, that's where definitely the training comes in, and the peace of mind. And you go like, yeah, this everything kind of happens for a reason. You're supposed to just go from A to B to C. A lot of us think that we can just jump to being a star in a movie with Spielberg. And you realize, like, whew, it's also not as much work once you get in there. The words can be hard, and that's why I like Anthony Hopkins, repetition, repetition, repetition. That way you can get it on set and it's just muscle memory.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I love both of those guys. J.K. Simmons is just one of those actors who and I'm sure it took a long time to get there. He never seems like he's working. He becomes the person that he's portraying, and it's probably helpful that he's an average looking guy. He's a normal looking guy, and he can probably be very chameleon like in getting into those different roles. Even when you put a head of hair on him and a mustache or something with some of these character roles he's had.
He was fun to work with. He's playing, what's interesting about this film, The Woods, is he is a true villain, not in the sense of like Whiplash, where you could maybe try to see some of the justification with his behavior, as monstrous as it was. In this, it's Terminator meets Falling Down is what I got from the scripts, but with probably greater depth. And he is the Terminator. He is a sociopath on a rampage, and it's a haunting role. So of course there wasn't a lot of there was just professionalism on set. Come up, talk about blocking, this, that. How do you want to do this? If any firearms were on set, complete safety with that, which was great. But my character, Burly Man, is rough talking a dog at a gas station, and which is overheard by a character. And I had to coax this dog back to me in between every break, everything I did. So I had all these treats from the owner, who was super sweet, and I felt bad. I'd rough talk this dog and it just freeze up, and then the dog would run away and I had to bring it back, and I just felt horrible. But luckily the owner was great, and the dog Pixie was super sweet. But after a couple of takes, Mr. Simmons walks by and he looks at me after I'm bringing the dog back, and he goes, that dog's going to think you're bipolar. And the great voice. And I looked at it, and the only thing I could say, I was like, the dog might be onto something. And then my other favorite little story with him was there were some pads on set, some crash pads, and they were piling them up. And he came over and he looked at them and he goes, "What are we doing? Production of Once Upon a Mattress?" And I was in Once Upon a Mattress with the Minnewaska Showstoppers back in '92. So I just started kind of coyly being like, with an F and an R and an E and a D and an F-R-E-D, loud enough so he could hear me. And he just kind of paused and he looked at me. Then he walks over to his wife, who was the director and co-writer of the film. And I'd see them chat for a little bit. And then she comes walking up to me and she's like, "So I hear our Burly Man has a background in musical theater." And I just kind of smile and laugh. And I was like, yeah. So I was hoping to have a moment with him at the end of the shooting day, but he was off shooting B footage. I have found in Hollywood that when there is a moment and you have an opportunity with a celebrity, if you have something really sincere to share with them, and it can be a quick moment, there is permission to share those things. And when he won his Oscar, part of his acceptance speech was some of the best wisdom I ever got, and I have no problem sharing it, which was, if your parents are still alive, let them hang up first. That's the gist of it. Don't hang up on them. Don't finish the phone call. Don't rush it. And I could cry talking about that, because I'm blessed I still have my parents. And I use that advice every time I talk to them. As urgent as I think my day is, and I have to get to doing this, that, and the other, just stop. So I didn't get a chance to tell them that, but I'm going to see them another time, and I look forward to sharing that with them when I do.
All right. And where will this be showing? The Woods, did you say?
We don't know. I think they're going to do the festivals first, like try to get into Cannes, Sundance, and all that type of stuff. And then from there, you get a buyer. You look at Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO, or a distributor picks it up and says, "We want to put this in the theaters." But it's a crazy time with the industry right now, with the influx of streaming services, HBO Max putting movies right onto their platform as well as in the theaters. So it's a crazy time. Theater out here in Los Angeles too. After the COVID, a lot of theaters have closed. A lot of 99-seat theaters, which were opportunities for just people moving out here to get seen, have managers and agents come see them, or casting directors. And a lot of theaters have closed, and we don't know how or when they're going to open back up. So it's an opportunity for reinvention.
Yeah. And I know even the college theater here, you go to MSU and you're masked 100% of the time. You go to Gustavus, where I was just recently, and it's not only masks, but you've got to bring your vaccination card. And for me, that's never been a challenge, because I just love theater so much. Especially, you realize that when you're back to it after sitting in front of a screen watching too many productions and meetings and other things.
Yeah, it was so great, dude, seeing Slasher at Minnesota State Mankato's in the Andreas.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful production, directed by a great grad director named Sarah, with a last name starts with an H. It's escaping me right now, and I apologize, Sarah, if you see this. But a wonderful cast, really challenging piece. And then the next night, I got to go see Mamma Mia with my nephew, Anthony Cohen, St. Peter, at the high school, and had a great experience seeing that. So to your point, yeah, seeing things live again, and being with an audience again, being in that setting of laughing with people. I would be laughing at the stage, and I'd look over and I could see my sister there, and we would have a moment. And I was like, this is great. I went and saw the Vikings play at SoFi Stadium last week against the Chargers. And our Vikings were 3-5. So I'm going in there with the mindset of like, if we lose, then so what? If we win, then great. But I'm going to have the experience of spectacle, like Aristotle would say, music, all those elements. So I hope we get back to that. And I think we will. We just have to be better.
And you mentioned that before we turned on the recorder, we realized we were at the same performance of Slasher, but because we were both hiding behind our masks, we didn't know the other was there.
You said you were there with Tom Belize and Gretchen Potter.
No, Greta Grosh, actually.
Oh, Greta, great. I'm so sorry. I thought you said,
Yeah.
well, Gretchen Potter, if you're hearing this, I was thinking of you earlier, but
And,
Greta,
and
yes.
and they were not with me. They were over in the other section. But Tom and I tend to show up at the same performance of many works. As a matter of fact, a couple of shows, I think it was for HMS Pinafore in the Ted Paul Theater, we had a couple of ladies in between us. And at one point they said, if you guys want, you can sit next, we'll move over. And I said, no, that's okay. Tom and I see each other at a lot of performances, so it's okay if we don't chat this time. But yeah, I really enjoy the Andreas the Studio shows because it really gives you, Slasher is not HMS Pinafore by any stretch, but at the same time, it's got such a valuable spot in the role of education for the students who were participating. The young lady who played what, three different roles. Uh, that kind of situation doesn't come up very often, but when you get it, you take it and you run with it, and I think she did with
I was
that.
telling her afterwards, I worked with her the next day, and that's MJ Railston, I think her name is. And I was telling her, I'm like, and I'm going to tell her more, like she looks like she's ready for Saturday Night Live after that performance. She
Yeah.
did so. I mean, one of her characters was straight up Rachel Dratch from Last Week Tonight, and the other two characters were so incredibly different. And she could do an amazing impersonation of Gilda Radner today.
Yeah.
I feel she has that type of character to her, doing that Rosanna Dana type thing and everything. So, and her McKenna Prill playing. This is one thing I told her. They had this young actress, but she's playing the old mother, like how I had to play Captain Keller in our Miracle Worker. And I told her after the production, I said, "You're amazing, and just so you know, you would never get cast in that role today.
Yeah.
So what an amazing opportunity that you got to do that, to stretch yourself and challenge yourself with that opportunity." And that's something that I think is great with educational theater is seeing these kids. When you get to TV, we are much more interested in yourself. Camera auditions, here's the little, like one of my acting asides. The industry, when it comes to camera versus stage, camera wants you. They want the most interesting versions of you. They're not interested in what you can play until you're a celebrity. You look at any celebrity that we follow now and we say, well, I always like to use Meryl Streep. Oh my God, Meryl Streep's amazing. But when she started off, she was playing a very natural version of herself. Think of The Deer Hunter. Now, that's not a big character. That's just a very sweet girl who loves a guy. And then as she becomes a celebrity, now we want to see them do things. We want to see them take risks. And those who are trained succeed. And those who aren't, don't. And they end up falling flat on their faces and having bad performances, perhaps. So that is why I think educational theater can be so useful. But what we do want to do as we transition students from theater to camera is start letting them tap into more of who they are, writing monologues in their voice, creating one-person shows about their stories, similar to how John Leguizamo and so many other performers use their lives to create one-person shows. Because that is one thing that we can do as our own artists. We can produce our own work and tell our own stories. It doesn't have to be relied upon other people. That's one of the big things I think I got from UCLA, where I got my master's degree, is we were doing plays in the middle of Beverly Hills and Bel Air and Brentwood. We had no money because nobody's giving money to UCLA. They think you're UCLA and you're fine. The theater department had no money. So we're building our own sets out of cardboard boxes and bringing our own costumes. It was none of the support that I got at Mankato. But they're like, this is going to be a big part of what you're going to have to do in LA if you want to do theater. You make it yourself.
Sure.
So Mankato does an amazing job of spoiling their students with the best design support I think you could ever have, but then also putting it on them to create their own work and give them opportunity, which I think is great.
Yeah, those studio shows, I think they've even reduced the budgets from $750 lower because, especially last year, they were doing 25 to 50% capacity. So there's no way you make any money doing that kind of stuff. But don't think that because it's an unknown show that it's not quality theater, because those students are there to do the shows, whether it be the Mamma Mia's or the slashers.
Yep, very much. There, and the students are so good. They want the life so bad. Not the acclaim and everything, but I can just tell like they're passionate about the work.
Yeah.
They want to be storytellers. They want to be artists. They want to be people who are experiencing life. And that's where this is a great outlet for those people who want that. Not everyone's going to want to. And who knows if they'll obtain the dreams that they want now. I say, once you get settled down, paying a mortgage, maybe you have a kid on the way, things change.
Yeah.
But you can still be successful with what you've learned.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking back to a show, one of the first ones in the Andreas Theater, actually. It was a studio production directed by an undergrad, Josh Mitchell. And it's eleemosynary, 3 generations of women, and all 3 were freshmen at the time. So you've got Tanya Peterson playing the grandmother, Sophia Berra playing the mom, and Amber Mazer playing the child. And they did a great job because Tanya was made up maybe a little bit, just the hairstyle, but you're not putting them in wigs. You're not putting them in, all this getup. You're allowing the character to come out and play, so to speak.
Yeah, I was there with Josh Mitchell. We did Romeo and Juliet together, and I remember hearing about that production and how amazing it was. And I got to say, as an alum, just continuously getting to be a part of, keeping in touch and seeing how the department has been doing with ACTF, getting shows to go all the way to Washington and such, and how the students have performed. It has been fun to follow and keep up with all the students and what they've done. Matt Karen, who was also a contemporary of mine, also in that Romeo and Juliet. For a lot of those don't know, he's the managing director now of the department and one of the professors. Julie Kerberry, I believe, is our chair now after Hustles is retired. I talked to Hustles the other day. I called to let him know about the passing of Professor Whitlock III.
Sure.
We had a good catch up, as did I with Dr. Lawson. I know that they love their students and they miss their students. So Lawson, I was always asking about who's doing what out in Los Angeles and if I hear from anybody. So I know that if any of the alum that are watching this, just take this as an opportunity to consider reaching back out to the school, either through a financial donation, because I know the department is definitely strapped for the cash and could use all the financial support they could get, or any other resources that you might be able to offer. If you feel you have some valuable information, if you're still in the field, bring that back. We are where we are because of who was ahead of us. So let's just be that for that next generation. And I tell them, I'm like, hopefully you come back and do the same thing and pay it forward. You also get a nice trip back to Mankato out of it.
and find out what's here and what's not. Maggie's, like you say, long time people would say, sorry, I was late. The service is really slow at Maggie's. And I would say, that's because everybody goes there. And they of course have closed when the Walgreens went into that spot, and there are Baker Square maybe comes the closest to that now, but they're still not that theater venue. But you've mentioned both giving back and the pandemic, and we are all now exposed to Zoom. What a great way to stay in touch if you want to appear without the plane ticket. Arrange to be a Zoom participant in a class.
Yeah, no, that is a really good approach to be able to take with it. There's a lot to give back, and I think the Zoom in 113, what we used to know as 110, they now have a massive TV in there with a camera, so that way people can zoom in and participate in that kind of format. Last year I was a Zoom contributor for Matt Karen's audition method class and worked with his students on that. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there, and I hope some of the alum can come back, and if nothing else, just come back and see a show. Yeah,
because they still do a ton of them. They do their 6 main stage, 4 studio, 2 dance concerts, 4 shows they only did 2 in Highland Summer Theater this year, which was really strange. They started at the regular time and then were basically done by the second weekend of June, I think. So that was a little bizarre, but as Matt Karen said, we were also busy from doing, basically double duty. during the school year, so it seemed like a logical thing to do. And
Mhm.
audiences are coming back. They're coming back slowly, but they are coming back.
We're gonna get a big celebrity show. Get Cedric Yarbrough, Tim
Hmm.
Storm, Melissa Peterman. I would love to
That'd
be
be
cast
fun.
in it.
Yeah, there you go.
Hollywood. Yeah, we have Tim Storm out here. I was going to say about the restaurants, though. I did get to experience one of the students, a lovely actress named Bridget. She was like, "Oh, come eat down at Nola Bella,
Oh yeah.
down next to Polly Eyes." And my sister also recommended it, so I did, and it was amazing. And then I went to Weggy's, which was where the Albatross used to be.
Yeah.
That was delicious. So go back down for the food, people. It's dinner and a show. Come on.
Exactly. All right. Well, tell you what, Spencer, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, there is, but
Okay.
I will think of it in about 20 minutes. Once we've hung up, everything's going to come back to me, and I'll think I wish. Nah, I miss. I tell you what, this is the final. My parting thought would be: is I miss my classmates from '94 to '98. The people that are watching this, and if you knew me from those times, I love you so much. You are still just my brothers and sisters from that time. You were my fraternity.
Yeah.
I never had a fraternity or sorority in college because I was in the theater departments, and
Yeah.
it's the best fraternity or sorority you could be a part of. And I still just cherish all those memories so much, and I want other people to have the opportunity to have those as well.
All right.
And after that, to have success. One of my favorite quotes from a teacher was, "I wish all of you fame, or no, I wish all of you success and none of you fame."
Okay.
And that is the biggest thing I would wish upon all the students I've been in touch with. So
All
thanks,
right.
Mike. Thanks for doing this,
Certainly.
buddy.
I appreciate that. It's always great for me because I span so many years of the theater department. I started writing about the theater department, I think in either late 86 or early 87. And then I came on board the staff in 99 and wrote almost until I left then I was there until 2015. And now I'm back writing about theater. So it's nice when my editor says, "Do you need any help with contacts for that?" And I say, "No, I'll just I'll just give them a call because I owe them one anyway."
Well, buddy, you always have a friend out here in Los Angeles. So if you ever need anything, let me know.
All right, I will certainly do that. Thank you, Spencer Kramber, not Kramber,
Not Kramber.
not the guy
Yeah,
from Seinfeld.
Kamala Kramer screwed me over with that.
Oh, there
She
you
was too
go.
talented. Everyone just saw my name and thought it was Kramer.
There you go. All right, well, thanks. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for checking in with us.
Thanks, boss.
All
Bye.
right, bye. And that's just the
And
stuff.
now we're done.